this is not a technique because, again, the research, if anyone pays attention to a lot of the research over the last 20 years of the common factors, shows that when you strip everything down, theories and techniques end up equally working about the same. It's the therapeutic alliance that's the most important. So building on that, we got to really know our techniques and theories, but there's this extra added dimension of creating a magical experience for the person, doing our therapy, our techniques, but how we're doing them, in what context, and opening ourselves up to things where we're not following rigid protocols or standardized treatments, but yet we still are grounded in our skill. Unfortunately, I think, and that was one of the reasons I wrote the book, I am seeing way too much regimentation and too much structure in therapy sessions. And as one of my colleagues, who's a well-known therapist, I won't name, said, Paul, most sessions you watch on these videos today are just boring. And I think that's true. They are boring. Sometimes, okay, you got to be a little boring, but there's got to be some dynamic happening. And I think that if we can find out what those elements are, that we can kind of, how do I put this? We can set the conditions for magic to come into the session.
It kind of goes back to the highway hypnosis thing.
Yeah.
As therapists, we're in a kind of highway hypnosis, if you will, of being locked into patterns.
Right. Yeah.
And you're challenging us in your thinking and in your work. You're challenging us to challenge ourselves.
Right.
To break out of that and tap into our own creativity.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the big thing a lot we're missing is creativity. You can be the greatest cognitive behavioral therapist, Gestalt therapist. We got like 500 different types of theory and therapy.
Yeah.
List them all. You could be great at that. But if you aren't creative at really interacting with the person that's in front of you in the moment, and you're not looking at them as a unique individual, what they're going to give you something, and you have to roll with what they're giving you, and you need them to respond a certain way. It kind of reminds me, as I'm talking about this, just popped in my head. Years and years ago, when I was a young man, I tried to take a certain karate martial art, and they said when the attacker does this, then you do that, and it seemed logical. And I would practice, and in training, it always worked because when the person, I knew they were going to do this, and then I do that. And then, you finally put on the gloves and get out, and then, get hit in the nose, and you're going like, what happened? And the thing is, the training partner, when you're sparring, didn't do what you thought they were going to do. That's the whole point of it. Well, unfortunately, a lot of how therapy is taught, in my opinion, and this is my opinion alone, but I don't think I'm alone in this.
Not alone. I was going to say, you're not alone.
I just think it's that they're so stuck on do this at this time and use this theory and use this technique. And I'm not saying it can't be effective, but we could be more if we're alive and dynamic and see that we have a unique individual in front of us. I mean, the big thing now, you get the CUs, trauma therapy. Okay, well, where's the individual in trauma? Trauma therapy, that's great. Are we doing therapy with an individual, or are we doing it with the trauma? Little distinctions on language. Okay, well, where's the individual? It's like when they asked Salvador Minuchin about systemic therapy toward the end of his life. He said, where's the family in systemic family therapy? Because it's all become techniques and narratives, and there's not the family. Where's the family in this? And I think
it's reminding me of Carl Jung supposedly said, thank God I'm not a Jungian.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was just being himself and doing what came naturally.
Right.
Sprung from his unique personhood, and somehow figuring it all out, writing it down, putting it in books, and then trying to do the same thing. There's a big gap there, and that's a point that comes across really strongly in your writing, very effectively.
Yeah, and again, it's the way I wrote the book. It's not about a theory. It's not about a technique, because those all can work. But if we are so focused on implementing those and we're not paying attention to the individual, we totally rob ourselves and the individual of being able to transcend not just their problem, but to have a transformative experience.